What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Check in this play Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 Part 6. This is the wrap-up video where I will show off anything that I haven't before in the game and my other while playing the game through normally. I'll talk about any of the trivia, critic reviews, and just some of the lesser known facts about the individual levels and the game itself, how it was developed and all that. Just things that people don't know right off the top of their head or don't usually know to look for or know where to look for. But for now, I want to show off time attack mode. As you can see here, I already have a time. I ran through it just to try to give it a little practice run. The time attack mode is the exact same as it was in Sonic in Episode 1. The only difference is the levels are different, and you have Tails here with you. And Tails can actually help benefit you a lot if you can stay up higher by using Tails to fly and gain a little bit of time. Using the rolling combo will definitely help you out in the long run. No, that's not a... by using the rolling combo along long stretches of open ground, you can definitely save yourself a lot of time. That's a great way to go through a stretch of land really fast. I don't believe you can actually use the rolling combo over water, so you want to be very careful while using it there. You know, here, and I can show it off here. I guess this was where we'll see whether we can go on water or not. That's useful. Just remember to jump there so that you can get save a little bit of time. I can't use the... You're gonna try to use the copter combo there, or just gonna try to use the homing attack on those bubbles. And remember, the higher you stay, the better off you'll be. Oh no. Wow. Well, there is a trophy that actually has you going through here in under a minute. Well, my time was a little bit better. I wasn't prepared for that spinning wheel that would open up those blocks to help go on. You can see here you got to retry or return to stage select. That's what I'm going to do. There is, as I was saying, there is a trophy tied to beating Act 1 in under a minute, which is pretty easy to do. If you use Supersonic, you'll definitely help yourself out. If you use the rolling combo, you'll definitely help yourself out a little bit more there as well. But now I'm going to go ahead and show off talk about the level trivia, just the trivia about the individual levels. And I'm going to start off here with Sylvania Castle. The name of this stage, and some of this stuff, if you haven't already guessed, is just fan interpretations of things. You know, it's not actual trivia about the game. It's just like speculations on some things, and I try not to talk about those if I know where know it's there. But the name of this stage may be a shortening of Transylvania. Also, Sylvania literally means forest land in Latin, as the ruined castle is surrounded by a dense forest. So I guess that's lesser known trivia. It's not really fan it is kind of filled with speculation, but not as much as I thought it was. So anyway, the level also bears a strong resemblance to Kingdom Valley, which was a level in Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. Kingdom Valley was often noted as somewhat resembling Aquatic Ruin Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which this zone does take a little bit from. As the player progresses from Act 1 to Act 3, the setting of this stage changes from day to night. This is similar to Splash Hill Zone from Episode 1, where the stage started out in the daylight until the third act, which changes to a sunset setting. It's noted that Act 2's music contains nods to Aquatic Ruin Zone, as well as Sonic 3 and Knuckles' Flying Battery Zone. Act 3's music sounds similar to the shop menu in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. So there you go. There's things for that's level trivia for Sylvania Castle Zone. You can definitely tell that the music does take a little bit from those other games. Okay, so White Park Zone Act. This is for White Park Zone, the level trivia. White Park Zone Act 1 is the only stage that is playable in the trial version of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2. The trial finishes after the timer counts 2 minutes, abruptly interrupting the game without giving the player a chance to finish the stage. which I found was not a very good idea. I can understand why they did it because with Sonic Generations and Sonic in Episode 1, the demo versions had people hacking into them. Sonic Generations had this, got this a lot worse. When they put the demos out of Green Hill Zone Acts 1 and 2 for both modern and classic Sonic, it got hacked and a lot of information got leaked really early on. And so I can understand the 2-minute timer for this, because I don't believe you can actually pause it. If you do pause, I think it still does take 2 minutes. But it's not enough time to get through the entire level. I'm sure you could try to speed run it, but a lot of people, well, I don't want to speed run it. I would like to look at the game and play the game and figure out what happens and what you have to do here and there. And while I understand why they made it 2-minute thing, I didn't much care for it myself. And I'm not going to call it a bad business practice or whatever. They done it to protect the game, to make sure that it didn't get leaked. But I feel that if they would have at least let you finish the level, maybe gave you enough time so that you could finish the level easily, maybe 3.5 minutes, that would maybe be a little bit better. I'll see what my time through there was. I guess it doesn't tell me my time, but anyway, what was it, Act 1, yeah, so, I guess it was probably about 3.5 minutes, my time for it was, but anyway, the avalanche section is similar to the one in Sonic Adventure, in the Sonic Adventure version of Ice Cap, as well as the one in Blizzard Peaks from Sonic Rush Adventure. That is one of the DS games made by Dimps, so it's not surprising that they would use elements from their own game. Sonic Rush Adventure was made by Dimps for the DS, which is the second, or which was the second, and still is, Sonic game to be exclusive for the DS. Acts 2 music samples Twinkle Park's Pleasure Castle, also from Sonic Adventure. Act 3's music is similar to the music of Lost Labyrinth Zone and Hidden Palace Zone. Lost Labyrinth Zone coming from Episode 1. Hidden Palace Zone comes from Sonic and Knuckles, which was the zone in between Lava Reef and Sky Sanctuary, where Knuckles saw that Robotnik was bad, was there just to steal the Master Emerald and join Sonic to help him fight Robotnik. White Park is one of the many theme park zones in the Sonic series. That is another, it's not quite as common as a water zone or a snow zone, but it is becoming increasingly more common as you go throughout the series. Act 2 is similar to Stardust Speedway from Sonic CD, as there are many paths for speeding up. That doesn't really make sense. Anyway, in the background of this zone, a visual error occurs when the roller coaster cart turns the corner. The beams of light from the headlamps become jerky. The Death Egg Mark II can be seen in the background of the boss act being built around a little planet. So that is something that I did not even know personally, and I did not point out. But just as it says here, in the boss fight, you can see in the background. It's not that hard to see it, but it's not that easy to see it either. You have to look kind of hard, but not too hard to be able to find it. If you're playing the game, if you're playing it, you won't be able to see it. But if you watch it, and you just look in the background, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. But anyway, so that's it for White Park Zone. We'll do Oil Desert now. The music. So this is Oil Desert Zone trivia. The music for Act 1 has the same drum beat of Metropolis Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog 2. The music in Act 2 became a meme among fans due to the instrument at the beginning resembling dying ducks. In Act 3, the oil refinery has turned into a garbage dump, although it is unknown why. The music in the first act of the zone is similar to the music from the first act of Lost Labyrinth Zone. So this is more music-based than actual information. But, so now we will go to Sky Fortress Zone. Similar to the levels, this is Sky Fortress Zone trivia. Similar to the levels, it borrows its tropes from Sky Fortress Zone's name, references both Sky Chase Zone and Wing Fortress Zone. Sky Chase Zone being the zone from which you chase Robotnik in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and Wing Fortress Zone is where you actually get onto Robotnik's flying fortress in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 as well. Like Sonic 2, the zone precedes a final showdown taking place in Robotnik's Death Egg. This game's Death Egg being Death Egg Mark II. The ring shooters in Act 3 are similar to the ones in Death Egg Zone in Sonic and Knuckles. One of the ring shooters in Act 3 sends you through 2 loops, but you can somehow collect the rings on the loop despite you not actually touching them. This is most likely a glitch brought on by the game's engine. When playing multiplayer mode, the player that controls Tails controls the tornado itself, which means unlike single player mode, the tornado won't automatically snap to Sonic's position if he moves or jumps, causing him to lose a life, although either player can use the call partner command, right trigger for the Xbox 360, R2 button for the PS3, respectively. RT or right trigger R2, Xbox 360, PS3, respectively, to bring Sonic back onto the tornado, which is extremely useful when doing Act 1 and the boss fight. Also, Tails cannot lose a life, so if Sonic loses a life, the game restarts at the beginning or at the last touch checkpoint. So that's it for Sky Fortress Zone. Death Egg Mark II Zone actually has a little bit more in it, trivia-wise. While this Death Egg has constantly changing gravity similar to Sonic and Knuckles' Death Egg Zone, there are no enemies present aside from Dr. Robotnik and a robotic doppelganger of Sonic, in this case Metal Sonic, making it highly reminiscent of Sonic the Hedgehog 2's Death Egg Zone, where you had to fight Mecha Sonic, which was the gray version of a gray Sonic robot, and then you fought the Death Egg Robo. In this game, we didn't fight the Death Egg Robo, but you still fought Robotnik. In the final showdown with Metal Sonic, not only is the race from Stardust Speedway recreated, but the Stardust Speedway Bad Future music from the Japanese-European soundtrack for Sonic CD has been remixed. Metal Sonic is even defeated the exact same way as he was in Sonic CD, and I did point that out. I wasn't sure if they had recreated exactly, but they did a pretty good job of it. If it's not recreated exactly, there may be some differences with spring locations. I don't believe there was any spring locations in the original Sonic CD version, and there may have been a few more spikes here and there, but for the most part it is recreated almost exactly the way it was in Sonic CD. Unlike its predecessor, which was made entirely from scratch, this Death Egg is built around the little planet from Sonic CD, which is also a giant spherical structure surrounding a little planet, or maybe just Stardust Speedway's Bad Future. Okay, so I'm gonna guess. I guess they're calling it. I guess they're referring to the metal around the little planet in Sonic CD. This version of the Death Egg is called the Mark II, even though there was already a Death Egg 2 which Dr. Robotnik built in Sonic the Fighters. This could be due to the former originating from a separate construction plan, while this station was modeled more after the original. Now, the Death Egg 2, Sonic the Fighters was an arcade-exclusive fighting game, which is one of the few Sonic fighting games. It's kind of like, arcade fighters or just side-scrolling fighters, except this one had a little bit more 3D element. Well, it wasn't isometrical, but the camera would move around you as you fought the characters, and it was an arcade exclusive until just recently. They ported it to the next-gen consoles, PS3, Xbox 360 versions, and you can buy it there. And I may do a Let's Play project on it. I don't know. It's a really short game, so it would be just a one video if I did do it. But you never know. I very well may. I haven't decided yet. The final boss appears to look like a realistic heart, possibly because it is the heart of the Death Egg Mark II. Unlike its predecessor, this Death Egg doesn't plummet back down to Sonic's world or explode after the final battle. Instead, it remains stationary in orbit, and all the lights on the exterior turn off, implying that while it's still intact on the outside, the damages made on the inside by Sonic and Tails have caused it to power down for the time being. It is also unknown if the little planet is saved or if it can disappear from inside the Death Egg, it may appear in a possible Episode 3, as the content in Episodes 2's files contain a to-be-continued message and an unused 34-second cutscene audio file that would play after the credits, leading speculations of another episode. The removal of the post-credits cliffhanger has also led to speculations that Episode 3 won't be produced, and I talked about this during the credits. And it's, you know, it's still up in the air. At the time of this recording, it's near the end of June in 2013, and there still has been no word whether or not. There was supposed to be some talk of, it was rumored for a little while, I believe it was back in April or May, that Sonic Episode 3 would be debuted in E3. Well, E3 has come and gone again at the time of this recording, and there was no mention of Sonic of Episode 3. That doesn't mean that they still won't mention something about it, but as of at the time of this recording, they haven't mentioned anything about it. During the mid-boss with Metal Sonic, the version of Stardust Speedway theme played is the second remix of the tune. The first remix was in Sonic Generations. Sonic Generations came out a year before this. Well, a handful of months before this game came out. That game came out in November 2011. I believe this game came out in either March or May 2012. I'm not 100% sure. Let me see. The escape pod's design is similar to the Bridge Zone boss from Sonic the Hedgehog 8-bit. I'm not familiar with the 8-bit versions of Sonic the Hedgehog, of the old Sonic the Hedgehog games, so I don't know exactly what they're referencing there. Possibly the escape pods being similar to the Bridge Zone escape, an element from the Bridge Zone. The design of the Death Egg Mark II level and background is inspired by Deadline from Sonic Rush, another DIMPS game, and Sonic Rush was the first exclusive Nintendo DS Sonic game, and the first Sonic game to be produced on the Nintendo DS. Again, made by DIMPS, and I believe, well, it wasn't DIMPS's first game made, but it was one of their newest, or I guess their first games they made for it. So it is not uncommon for developers like that to take elements from their old games. So if fans, recognize it, they'll, I guess, be happy. I don't know. This is the only zone from Episode 2 to have a full act without any gold plate at the end. I mentioned that when I played through it for the first time. The race with Metal Sonic is the only boss in Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 to be reused from a previous game. Okay, so now we will go on to game plot, or I guess game trivia. The plot of this game is set a few months after the events of Episode 1, Little Planet, where Sonic CD took place, approaches once more. Dr. Robotnik, who was defeated in the previous installment, knew that was only the beginning of his big scheme that he had been planning in secrecy. Dr. Robotnik planned the entire plan from the very beginning of Episode 1. So I guess the events in Episode 2 he knew about back in Episode 1. Hearing that Little Planet has finally returned, Robotnik eagerly hops back into action. The next phase of his scheme will begin to unfold elsewhere. Sonic the Hedgehog's old robot rival Metal Sonic has survived his defeat. Back in Sonic CD, though, was left on Little Planet when it disappeared before Robotnik finds the Metal Hedgehog and has made him even more powerful than before, making Sonic no match for him. Meanwhile, Sonic has found out about the Doctor and Metal Sonic being back, so he recruits his buddy Miles Tails Prower to help him face this new threat and set off to stop Eggman's latest scheme. What was Dr. Eggman searching for in the Lost Labyrinth? What was Mad Gear built for there? They were all a mere puzzle piece of grandiose project schemed by Dr. Eggman. When Little Planet reappears, Dr. Robotnik's whole scheme will be revealed. Even though it doesn't say why all this stuff was made in, or doesn't talk about that bit in Episode 2, but in Episode Metal, which I will be doing right after this one, it goes into a little bit more detail about that. So here's the storyline. After the events of events of Episode 1, Sonic and Tails are riding the tornado through the clouds. Sonic orders Tails to land, and they crash into Sylvania Castle Zone. They then make their way to the end of the castle and defeat Dr. Robotnik and his new contraption, the Egg Serpent Leaf. They then head to the Snow Mountains of White Park Zone, where they head into Robotnik's amusement park, where he is transforming a little planet. They then come to face to face with Metal Sonic on Tails' rocket. He hops off, and they battle. Sonic and Tails are victorious, and they head to Robotnik's newest base, the Oil Desert Zone. They then defeat Robotnik's new Egg Scrap Mech and pursue him into the air on the tornado, but are suddenly attacked by Metal Sonic and the new Metal Carrier. They land on the Sky Fortress Zone and manage to defeat Metal Sonic. Robotnik and Metal Sonic then flee to the Death Egg Mark II zone, metallized around Little Planet. Sonic and Tails then defeat Metal Sonic and Robotnik. Pursuing Metal Sonic, they race him, and he is wrecked upon being electrocuted on a door. They make it to the center, where they defeat Robotnik's new Egg Heart. The battle causes the Death Egg Mark II to be destroyed, but Sonic and Tails manage to escape the two escape pods and land down to Earth, while the Death Egg Mark II is drained of its power and is left helpless above Earth. Little Planet was still inside the Death Egg Mark II, trapped in space. So the description of this game, I guess, on Sega's official website: Metal Sonic has returned to form a formidable alliance with Dr. Robotnik. To face this new threat, Sonic will have to call upon an old friend to help him save the day. Joined by Tails, they utilize ingenious combination moves and race across 4 brand new zones in order to put an end to their evil plans. Play alone or with a friend locally and online in an evolution of Sonic 2's collaborative gameplay. Unleash Sonic and Tails' devastating joint attacks and combination moves to fight the united force of Metal Sonic and Dr. Robotnik. Episode 2 features an all-new game engine, bringing you updated physics and an original graphical style as you race through 4 unique zones and a new special stage based on the one from Sonic 2. Okay, so gameplay in this game. Let me see. Alright, so gameplay. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 plays similar to the previous episode, but with several enhancements. Sonic is now accompanied by Tails, either controlled by a computer or a second player via local or online cooperative play. Unlike in the 16-bit titles, Tails cannot be played in a single player. And likewise, Sonic cannot be played on his own here. There are also new various combination moves that can be performed together, such as Tails lifting Sonic up to places he would be unable to reach otherwise, and the two can roll into a ball to perform a fast and powerful spin attack. Special stages in Episode 2, also accessed the same way as they are in Episode 1, are based on the half-pipe style format introduced in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, in which the player is required to collect a certain number of rings before the goal in order to obtain a Chaos Emerald. Also returning are the Red Star rings that have previously appeared in Sonic Colors, which was their debut, and Sonic Generations, which they have been added in as well. One red ring is hidden per act, and an achievement trophy is unlocked after collecting them all. There is also cross-compatibility planned for the Xbox Live and Windows Phone 7 versions, allowing players to alternate their games between them using cloud saving. Owners of both Episode 1 and 2, provided they are both on the same system, will unlock the free Episode Metal content in Episode 2. Episode Metal explains how Metal Sonic came back to life after being defeated in Sonic CD. Players play as Metal Sonic through 4 acts, all of which are reworked zones from Episode 1, explaining the significance of those zones to the story as well. Okay, so playable characters: Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Sonic, Miles Tails per Hour. Non-playable: Dr. Robotnik, Metal Sonic. Bosses: Egg Serpent Leaf, Metal Sonic, Egg Scrap Mech, Metal Carrier, Metal Sonic, and Robotnik. Metal Sonic Race, and Egg Heart. Characters: Fulvor, Spikes, Steel Lion, Zoomer, the Scarabisque, I believe, Sandworm, Bubbles, Mantis, Flamer, Turtleoids, Snowy, Clucker, Chop Chop, and the Valkyrie. The Mantis I don't believe we actually seen, but they're a grasshopper-type robot, which was also featured in Marble Garden Zone in Sonic 3, since they can suddenly jump without notice. Their moves are unpredictable. Be careful not to bump into them. They are a pain in the butt in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Animal friends in this one are Flicky, Cucky, Pocky, Pecky, and Picky. I'll go ahead and, in case people haven't watched my Episode 4 thing, wrap-up video, I'll go ahead and talk about their names. Let me see. Flicky, which is the Bluebird. And the animal friends are Bluebird for Flicky, Pocky, which is the rabbit, Johnny Lightfoot, Cucky, which are the chickens, Chirps in the U.S., Pecky's the penguin, Tux in the U.S., Ricky, Squirrel, Sally Acorn, the U.S., which was a comic book character, and she is supposed to be the leader of the Knothole underground group, I believe is what they're called. Again, as I said in episode 1, I'm not too familiar with the comic books, but I know that much. She is the leader of the group. Picky, which is a pig, and Porker is the U.S. name for him. Zones: Sylvania Castle Zone, White Park Zone, Oil Desert Zone, Sky Fortress Zone, and the Death Egg Mark II Zone. Key items: Chaos Emeralds, Ring, Signpost, Star Posts, Item Box, Egg Capsule, and the Red Star Rings. Item boxes: Super Ring holds 10 rings, 1-up extra life. Power Sneakers makes you run faster for a limited amount of time. Invincibility makes you invisible for a limited amount of time. Shield protects you from a single hit. Combo attack: a golden item box that makes Sonic and Tails attack all enemies on screen and gives you points and rings if you score enough by pressing the jump button repeatedly. And I show those off in Oil Desert Zone Act 3, I believe. You can, if you mash the X button or the jump button enough times, you'll gain a lot more points, as well as you'll destroy all the enemies on screen, and you'll gain 50 rings as well. So those are, if you ever see one of those are definitely worth hitting. The special stages in Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 play like the special stages in Sonic 2. Like Sonic 2, Sonic and Tails must collect a certain amount of rings. The amount of rings increases after hitting a checkpoint. However, unlike Sonic 2, Tails can collect rings, but will not lose his share if he touches any bombs, although this is only true for single player. Also, unlike Sonic 2, the player can boost by holding the tag action button. While there is no time limit, there is a timer used for time attack scores. So Tails not collecting any rings. I believe I said that in either part 2 or 3, that I was 90% sure that he couldn't lose rings, but now this says for sure that he cannot lose rings by taking damage. The development for this game: in February 2011, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2 was confirmed to be in early development. Sega brand manager Ken Bowlow has mentioned the idea is to introduce new zones of things you haven't seen before. He also hinted that Episode 2 may have a larger budget than Episode 1 due to the latter, Episode 1, being received very well commercially. Bowlow also mentioned that many ideas for Episode 2 were planned while the first episode was being developed. Sega of America community manager Aaron Weber also hinted that Tails may appear in Episode 2, as well. On August 23rd, 2011, Sonic Team head Takashi Izuki stated that this year, 2011, is the anniversary, so we're focusing on the Celebration title, but moving forward to 2012, Sonic will still be going, so I'd hope to provide Episode 2 then, meaning that the anniversary game, which was Sonic Generations at that time, they wanted to focus all of their attention on that game, while they said, okay, but we're still making Sonic games in the future, so Episode 2 will come out in 2012. We will begin working on that game once Generations is over, and then we'll push all of our focus on Episode 2. So it's not really being delayed, or they're just saying, why we're not going to make this game in 2011, or make it come out in 2011. Sonic, let me see, where was I at? He also said that Sonic Team knew about the anniversary year and that Generations was planned way in advance. Therefore, it was always our plan to release Episode 2 after Generations. In preparation for Episode 2's release, Sega re-released Sonic the Hedgehog CD to digital platforms in winter 2011, billing it as a prequel to Episode 4, as the events of Episode 2 would rely heavily on what occurred in CD. On December 29th, some new information on Episode 2 was revealed, along with a teaser trailer, including the return of both Metal Sonic and Tails, and an updated graphics and physics engine. Platforms confirmed for release were Xbox Live Arcade, PlayStation Network, iOS, Android, Windows Phone 7, and PC. It has also been confirmed that no Wii version of Episode 2 will be released due to hardware constraints. On April 21st, 2012, an early beta version of Episode 2 was accidentally made temporarily available to people who pre-ordered the game on Steam before Sega removed it. Concerning future episodes, as of March 2012, Sega currently has no plans for Sonic 4 Beyond Episode 2, Takashi Izuki says that Sega is looking forward to their user feedback and wants to know how users accept Episode 2 during the PAX East 2012 convention. Cheat Code Central, which is a website, I'm not too familiar with who they are, spoke with Sega representatives who informed Cheat Code Central that the company would be taking Sonic games one at a time. It is said that if Episode 2 sells well, and Episode 3 will likely be in development, as well as a possible Episode 4 if Episode 3 does well. But as I said before, there is no plans as of right now to show, to talk about that. But something that I found interesting, in which this may not affect it at all, and I don't know any sales figures for Episode 2, but reception-wise among critics, Episode 2 received mixed reviews from critics. Aggregating review websites such as Game Ranking and Metacritic gave the PlayStation 3 version a 63.33% and 63 out of 10. The Xbox 360 version got a 61.37% and a 61% respectively. The first one, the percentage is for Game Rankings. Metacritic only does their out of a 0 to 100 scale, so they got a 63 out of 100. And the PC versions were 34% and 51 out of 100. IGN gave the game score a 6.5, stating that while it fixes the physics problems of Episode 1, it is still missing the magic of its Genesis predecessors. Games Radar criticized it in similar ways, stating that the two-player mode seems to prioritize griefing your friends instead of making real in-game progress, and further stating that every time we felt like we were reliving our old Sonic glory days, the next stage would incorporate limp and uninspired gimmicks like shifting winds or avalanche snowboarding. Electronic Gaming Monthly gave the game a 6.5, praising the old-school Sonic aspects of the game, but criticizing the Tails-related gameplay, stating that there were too many puzzles that required Tails' assistance. Joystick had mixed feelings on the game as well, awarding it 3 out of 5 stars, and stating Episode 2 makes improvements over its predecessor, while with better visuals, useful co-op maneuvers, and great special stages, but the inconsistent boss battles and uninspired level design keep it from recapturing Sonic's glory days. Game Trailers gave the game a score of 5 out of 5, saying that the level design and the team-up moves often slow. I'm sorry, I guess that's a 5.5. And the team-up moves often slow the pace of the game. Official Xbox magazine, the UK version, was more positive, concluding that the game was a smooth, slippery Sonic that takes another step away from its single-button origins without losing any of the hog essence. With local and online co-op, it offers just enough entertainment to justify its steep episodic price. And it wasn't priced too outrageously at the time. It has since gone down recently. I believe it started out $15, which for a game like this isn't uncommon for a $15 price tag for a downloadable title like this. But something that while critic scores are becoming increasingly unreliable as time goes on, in recent years we've seen one controversy spring up after another due to critics and how many people distrust these big gaming magazines like IGN. While a lot of people will trust IGN over, say, Electronic Gaming Monthly or OneUp.com or Joystick or even Digital Spy, they're still not going to blindly say, oh, because IGN says this game is bad or that game is good. They won't take that at face value and say, we won't buy game A because that's bad, but game B, we're going to buy that because it's great, because they just never say, everyone usually goes to YouTube and talk, I'm not, the only two that I can think of right off the top of my head are Total Biscuit and Total Halibut. He does reviews for games, as well as the Angry Joe Show. He does reviews for games, and a lot more people will trust these two guys outside of these big companies. But be that as it may, people will still buy a game depending on, no matter what a rating says, especially if it's a cheap game like this. It still doesn't mean that revenue-wise, Sega made enough to break even or even make money on this game. I haven't really dug around for too many financial reports, but I'm not even sure that Sega would post those out. I don't have any reason to believe that they wouldn't, but I just don't know that they would. I'm not too familiar with looking for that kind of stuff. But it's bad that Sega put it like that. The only way we're gonna make an episode 3 is if episode 2 sells well, and that could be for different reasons. Maybe it takes a lot of money to make one of these games. Maybe it takes I'm not too familiar with the budget for this game, but and I don't know whether or not that it takes a whole lot of money for that. Sega is increasingly doing bad decisions, I guess, marketing-wise and game-wise. I'm not sure if they are in. It's not Sonic Team so much, but just Sega by themselves are in a little hot water over Aliens Colonial Marines. I heard a couple months ago, and at the time of this recording, there was a lawsuit filed. I haven't heard what came of it, but I know that there was one filed against Sega and I think it was Gearbox. I believe that was the company. And Sega will have to put some money into that. Sega of Japan went around and was deleting YouTube accounts for any YouTube account that had Shining Force 3 content on their channel. They would delete that, so I'm sure they noticed a drop in sales because of that, because people would boycott Sega games, so they wouldn't buy them. I know a lot of big YouTube channels are even now, months after these people losing their channels, are still boycotting Sega. So maybe that doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it just takes a handful of people to hurt a company like that. And they're making Sonic Lost Worlds for the Wii U, which currently is not selling that well and does not seem to have any really first-party titles that sell Nintendo consoles until 2014, January, February, March of 2014. And Sonic games are not known to be console sellers, so once these games come out in holiday 2013, they may, people that have Wii U's will want to buy those games, but not everyone has a Wii U sitting in their house, and not a lot of people bought the Wii U on launch, and a lot of people sold them. Maybe they sold them to a friend, like on Amazon, eBay, maybe traded them into a game store, and they're having trouble selling them. So while they're putting so much money into Sonic and Mario Winter Games 2014 and Lost Worlds, that they may not have, and because the games initially probably won't sell well because both of those are Wii U exclusives, they will see a hurt in their profits once those games come out. And so, because of the reviews of this game, and because of the way that they are hurting, they're not hurting for money, but they probably will be after those games come out. At least initially, over time, and more people buy Wii U's for those Mario, Zelda games. They'll say, "Oh well, here's a Sonic Lost Worlds and Mario and Sonic at the Winter Olympic Games cheap. I'll go ahead and buy those." And they'll start to see their profits rise a little bit, but for the most part, they will see, and like I said, initially they'll be at a loss money-wise. So, because Sega has put it if this game is good, we'll make another one. If it's not, we won't. It's, you know, it's just kind of, it's really hard to say whether or not they will. It's, it doesn't look good in the future, money-wise, for Episode 3, but you never know. As I said, there were some rumors, but, you know, unless it's confirmed by Sega, rumors on the internet don't mean anything. But regarding future episodes, here's another bit of information. It was said that if Episode 2 sells well, and Episode 3 will likely be developed, as well as a possible Episode 4 and Sonic the Hedgehog 5, which is not, while Episode 5 is an unreliable source in the information that I'm reading, it's, and there's nothing, I've never even heard of Sonic the Hedgehog 5. You can find that on the Wikipedia page for it, so I'm not even familiar if, you know, if that will be there or not. But trophies and achievements, the adventure begins. Clear Sylvania Castle Zone Act 1. Rolling combo, activate the rolling combo with Sonic and Tails. Metal Sonic Falls, defeat Metal Sonic and Sky Fortress Zone. A Golden Wave, defeat all bosses in Super Sonic. Defeat the final foe and watch the ending. All stages cleared. Tag partner, upload a multiplayer score or time. I love Tails, play as Tails 50 times. Beat special stage 1 after collecting every ring. Endurance race, clear all stages without returning to the world map. All Chaos Emeralds found, collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds. Proof of speed, clear Sylvania Zone Act 1 in 1 minute or less. Came pretty close, but I didn't. I should have used the rolling combo early. That will definitely help you out. And if you notice, you can use the rolling combo over water, and because you can go a lot faster than normal Sonic, you will definitely help yourself out if you go ahead and do that. All Red Star rings found, defeat the final boss after collecting all the Red Star rings, which is a 40 gamer score for the achievement wise, and the gold trophy for the PS3. Let me see. Some beta elements within the beta 8 of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2, along with a to be continued text. There was a short track that belongs to a cutscene within the game. The cutscene is named Cutscene 9C, while the final cutscene of the game, where Sonic and Tails leave the exploding Death Egg Mark II zone, is named Cutscene 9A. The cutscene itself, though, may have been removed from the game entirely. Getting a free life. When pressing the 0 button in the beta 8 version of Sonic the Hedgehog Episode 4, Episode 2, the player automatically gains an extra life. This is probably because the developers wanted to see if it worked. Alright, so that's beta elements and things of that nature. So here's the trivia page. This is the first Sonic game since Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing or Sonic 06 in the mainstream games. Sega or All-Stars Racing for the spin-offs, Sonic 06 in for the mainstream games, or the main series games, to promote Tails as a playable character, not counting the digital re-release of Sonic the Hedgehog CD. They pushed Tails being playable in that game as well with the digital re-release. Also, in creativity for promoting Tails, the art and styling for the game's beta box art represents Tails' two tails in place of the number 2. This is all featured in the game's teaser trailer. The color of the sandworm looks very similar to its iteration, the Caterpillar. The first boss, which before it actually occurs, pokes fun at Episode 1's use of rehashing by tricking players into thinking the boss would be a variation of Sonic 2's aquatic ruin boss. After the totem poles pop up, however, the egg serpent leaf destroys the poles before the fight actually begins. This is the first Sonic game to promote Tails as carrying Sonic underwater. This is the first to feature it. The first feature that Tails carrying Sonic underwater was Sonic Advance 2 with Tails' mid-air tag action. The game celebrates the 20th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, as well as the title card paying homage to said game, which is similar to Episode 1, which pays homage to Episode 1. The special stages are given a Sonic 2 style. This style of special stage was also previously used in Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic Pocket Adventure, Sonic Rush, and Sonic Colors DS. A DS version. the game also celebrates the 20th anniversary of Tails' first appearance. The snowboard from Sonic 3, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and Sonic Adventure Ice Cap Zone returns in White Park Zone. It appears that the Metal Sonic has stolen the rocket Tails has made, the one that is used to get to the final zone in Sonic 4 Episode 1. This game marks the return of Little Planet from CD, however, unlike Sonic CD, Little Planet only appears in space. The music in the second trailer is a remix of the menu music from Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. It was rumored that remix would be in the game, but it was nowhere to be found. Red Star rings make a return, though they only exist for the achievement trophy in the game, which is kind of a forced replay value. You know, you get through the game, you had fun with it, but you didn't go after the Red Star rings. If the Red Star rings weren't in that game, you wouldn't have any incentive to replay the games outside of the time attack mode. But with the Red Star rings, you have a more of an incentive to play. But in this game, you don't gain anything outside of a trophy or an achievement. The warning signs from Sonic Generations are also back. Super Sonic is playable in ordinary boss fights, which is the first time since Sonic 3 and Knuckles to do so. According to the world map of Episode 2 and Episode 1, Sylvania Castle Zone, White Park Zone, and Oil Desert Zone are adjacent and are on the same island of the world map of Episode 1. And that I will show off at the end of Episode Metal. I don't want to spoil that right now. Metal Sonic's artwork is extremely familiar to his Sonic Generations artwork, except in his modern design. Due to a glitch on Steam, very few lucky gamers who purchased Sonic 4 Episode 2 were able to play through the beta version of the whole game in Episode 1 and keep it. On April 14th, the glitch was quickly fixed. Now, people weren't actually buying the game, they were pre-ordering it, and for whatever reason, Steam had a glitch where they could play through the entire game and Episode Metal at the same time. Unlike Episode 1, Episode 2 contains 3D cutscenes. An example of this is once you beat the final boss. The Egg Heart cutscene shows Sonic and Tails fleeing the Death Egg Mark II and escape pods, at least on the iOS version. The cutscenes are FMVs, not in-engine. The iOS version of the game uses cutscenes from the console versions. Due to this, there are slight graphical discrepancies. The most noticeable at the beginning of the first act. In the console PC versions, the tornado lands and Sonic and Tails jump onto the ground, immediately starting to level with no fade out or loading time. The iOS and Android versions, however, fade out to black right after the cutscene and then start to level. Unlike Episode 1 special stages, Episode 2 special stages do not contain a time limit. Rather, a time bonus is rewarded at the end of the stage depending on how long it takes the player to finish. Oddly, the Chaos Emeralds in this game seem to be bigger than Sonic's head. But the Chaos Emeralds are pretty inconsistent for size, such as in Sonic Adventure, they were about the size of the character's hands. In Adventure 2, they fit the hands perfectly. In Heroes, they were similar to the same size as in Adventure. In Sonic 06, or in Shadow the Hedgehog as well, they were bigger. They were bigger than the character's hands, but in Sonic 06, they shrink them down to where they fit a lot more comfortably in the character's hands. The special stages have a feature that is also included in Sonic Rush and Sonic Colors, which is jumping at the end of the right and left sides of the track, which is jumping up on the sides of the half pipe. Let me see. Supersonic's physics remain unchanged from Episode 1 because Sonic Team didn't see any problem with them, according to Ken Bowlow. On the icon for the trophy achievement for getting all the Chaos Emeralds, and the order of the Chaos Emeralds is flipped vertically from the order in Episode 1. And I haven't showed, I talked about the trophies instead of actually showing the trophy list off, and I'll go ahead and do that now so that you can see them compared. So this is the Episode 1. You can see going clockwise, it's red, blue, yellow, green, gray, light blue, and then purple. This is Episode 1. And then here in Episode 2, you can see, starting clockwise, it's green, yellow, blue, red being on the bottom instead of on the top, purple, blue, and gray. So, and you can see the trophy, bronze, 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 3 silvers, and then the gold one for defeat the final foe after collecting every red star ring, which is this game's equivalent of a Platinum Trophy. Episode 1 did not feature any kind of Retina support. Episode 2 features Retina support for iPhone 4 and iPod Touch 4G, but not for the iPad 3. A comic adaptation was made for the game and was put into the Supersonic Special Magazine Issue 3. The victory poses of Sonic after a boss battle are the same as his stance in Sonic Advance. The in-game description refers to the tornado as Tails' plane. This is incorrect, as the original tornado model airplane belongs to Sonic. This game and Generations are the only games where Sonic can de-transform from his super state at will. Even then, it is only possible in Generations and Planet Wisp by using color power. In Episode 2, it can be done anytime by simply performing a tag action. It is extremely helpful if the player wants to conserve rings. Unlike the Sonic 4 Episode 1, only one boss in this game. The remake of Stardust Speedway boss on the Death Egg Mark II is based on a boss from the classic games. There are slight graphical differences between the mobile versions and the console PC versions. When Tails walks in front of these are the differences. When Tails walks in front of or behind Sonic, he becomes slightly translucent in the console versions. This effect is lost in the mobile versions. The lower iOS version for iPod and iPhone and iPod Touch removes Sonic and Tails' facial expressions during the levels. They're still present in the cutscenes, however, as those are from the console versions. The ripples in the air that Sonic makes when he performs a homing attack are not present in the mobile versions, as with the previous episode. So that's it. That's all of the information about it. About the game and the possibility of an episode 3. So I thank you for watching. There won't be a challenge to the video because this is the wrap-up video. I really hope you enjoyed it. My final thoughts on the game. I really enjoy the game. I don't know, why critics were so, I guess, pissy about the game. It was not marketed as a 2D game to rival your revive your nostalgic experience from the Genesis titles. This was supposed to be a totally different game. It said it right there. I'll bring up the quote again. I believe it was Ken Bowlow who said it. Let me see if I can find it again. The Sega brand of manager Ken Bowlow has mentioned that the idea to introduce new zones and things you haven't seen before. So it's not like Episode 1 where Sega went out of their way to try to revive that nostalgic feeling and to get you excited to play a 2D Sonic game. And that's what a lot of these critics were complaining about, that it didn't capture that. Well, it's not supposed to capture that. It's supposed to be a new game. I'm sure they complained about Episode 1 not capturing that as well, but I'm not gonna get off onto that rant. I'll be sitting here for a couple hours ranting about it. But anyway, so again, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be doing Episode Metal as my next project, and then I will be going on to Sonic Colors and Generations. So until then, later everyone.